Hi and welcome to Medieval Morticia. This is my first ever vlog and it's on a topic that's very close to my heart, mental health. It's all in aid of Time to Talk Day 2016, which was created by Time to Change, which is one of England's largest campaigns hoping to end the stigma and discrimination experienced by people with mental health problems. Pop in a link here and in the description below so that you can find out a little bit more about the campaign and about mental health as well. But it's essentially all about inspiring people to work together to end negativity towards something that a lot of people suffer from. In aid of this, today I'm also wearing this. It's my Always Keep Fighting SPN Family sweatshirt. If you are a fan of Supernatural, you'll probably already know about this campaign, but it was set up by Jared Padalecki, who plays Sam Winchester in the show. It's in aid of people with mental health problems and with addiction problems. If you want to know a little bit more about that, I'll pop some links in the description. Mental health and stigma. Mental health is just like physical health in the sense that we have both of these things and they both can affect us very deeply. Our minds, just as our body, can become unwell. Mental health problems are a lot more common than you might think as well, with 1 in 4 of us being affected by some kind of mental health illness in any given year. And the effects upon our person are very real, as is a broken bone, even though we might not have anything to show for it. Mental health can range from anxiety to bipolar disorder, depression, eating disorders, OCD, personality disorders, and schizophrenia. If you do happen to see me looking over into this direction, it's because I'm referring to my notes. I wanted to make sure that I was as coherent as possible, so hopefully that won't be too distracting. I wanted to go over, first and foremost, some myths and facts. I found these on the Time to Change website, and you can have a look at those too as well. Myth: mental health problems are rare. As I've already said, it's not the case. 1 in 4 people will experience a mental health problem in any given year. Myth: people with mental health illnesses cannot work. This is false. If you don't suffer from a mental health illness yourself, you're probably 9 times out of 10 working with someone who's experiencing some kind of problem. Myth: oh, you're young, you're experiencing the ups and downs of puberty, it's all part of growing up, it's nothing. Not always the case. 1 in 10 young people will experience a mental health problem. Myth: people with mental health illnesses are usually violent and unpredictable. Nope. Actually, they're more likely to be the victim of violence themselves. The majority of violent crimes and homicides are actually committed by people without a mental health problem. And the people who suffer from them are actually more dangerous to themselves than to anybody else, with around 90% of people dying through suicide in the UK having experienced some kind of mental distress. Myth: people with mental health problems don't experience discrimination. That's incorrect. 9 out of 10 people with a mental health problem experience stigma and discrimination on a regular basis. Myth: it's easy for young people to talk to friends about their problems. Unfortunately, no, that's not the case. 3 in 4 young people fear the kind of reaction that they might get from a friend should they talk about any kind of mental health problem. And to be quite honest with you, we've all remember being kids, or we are a kid at the moment watching this. We know exactly what it was like or what it is like. So we know that it's difficult, and I feel like that's kind of something that's the same for any kind of age group. When you're trying to talk to a peer about something as personal as your mental health, it's always a little difficult, and I think we always will be inherently fearful of any kind of reaction that we might get from that. Potentially that's just because it's something that we're used to, or the fact that it's common in society for people to not talk about things like that. How can it affect daily life? Making friends, holding down a job, keeping fit and staying healthy, these are all things that are normal but can be difficult for those suffering from a mental health problem. The stigma surrounding mental health illness isolates individuals. I find it difficult to talk about these kind of things, and I know that a lot of other people do too. It's all about the fear of the negative reaction, of how people might look at you, might think about you, and might treat you once they're aware. Stigma also excludes people from day-to-day activities. Something as simple as getting out of bed or going out of the front door can be really overwhelming for me at times, especially when my anxiety is bad. Other simple activities can be hard to accomplish for those with mental health illnesses as well. Interestingly, 1/4 of people with mental health illness have been refused by insurance or finance companies, which is insane. It makes it harder for people to travel, to own property, to run your own business, things like that. Stigma can stop people getting and keeping jobs. People with mental health problems have the highest want to work rate of any disability group out there, but they have the lowest in work rate, which, if you think about that for a second, is just madness. 1/3 report people having been dismissed or forced to resign from a job, and 70% of people have been put off applying for a job for fear of some kind of unfair treatment once their employers know about their issues. Stigma also stops people seeking help, and I feel like this is a really big issue. When a person first experiences a mental health problem, they tend not to seek help, and they only come into contact with some kind of mental health service once they've reached a kind of crisis, which is never ideal. I personally have been putting off talking about my problems and experiences because I feel like there are people out there, for want of a better word, who are more worthy or have a more worthy problem that need to be taken care of first. And I more often than not downplay what I'm feeling because of that fact and because I feel embarrassed by it. Stigma has a negative impact on physical health. People with a mental health problem tend to have poorer than average physical health, and their physical health problems are often misdiagnosed. As a result of this, people with the most severe mental health problems die on average 10 years younger than they should do. Despite attitudes about sexuality, ethnicity, and other similar issues improving throughout the years, discrimination against people with mental health problems is still widespread. Time to Change has showed that 9 out of 10 people with mental health problems, which is 87%, report negative impact of stigma and discrimination on their lives. The studies also show that the way family, friends, neighbours and colleagues behave can have a big impact on the lives of people with mental health problems. Me personally, I suffer from anxiety and depression, and I've never found it easy to talk about, which I suppose is the point of this video. Finding the right words to describe either of those things I find difficult. I've often described them as old friends, which upon reflection is a little odd, but I feel like when you say, oh, they're old friends, there's a kind of unspoken weight to it. There's a story there, there's a past, but you don't necessarily want to divulge anything. They are by no means friends at all, which is, I suppose, the irony of the name. I feel like talking about it makes you very vulnerable too, which I really do not like. I feel bare and quite anxious and generally unnerved by it. The expectation of what you might receive negatively by divulging this kind of information is worrying, and I think that that's a reflection of the stigma which is attached to mental illness. You know, the way we think about it, the way we talk about it, or we don't, as the case may be, and the way that we process that information as well. Not only are others placing stigma onto those suffering, but I feel like those with the issues, myself very much so included in that, can actually be placing stigma on ourselves as well by not talking about it or accepting it or sharing it. By realising what it was that I was battling with, and by telling at least one person initially, I felt like I made a nice little dent in the wall that I put up for myself. It's not completely down by any means, but I am getting there. Personally, I use art to help me, just in any way of being creative, writing in particular. I'm a big fan of writing it down. I have a notebook here, and I carry it with me everywhere I go, and if I get a chance to write in it, I will do. In the middle of the night sometimes I won't be able to sleep because I've got too many thoughts in my head. Pick up my notebook, I'll write it down, and I feel like I've kind of transferred it and I've put it there, and I can then think about other things and then get to sleep. My anxiety can come on when I'm put in a situation where I feel like I can't cope with it, even though I might be able to cope with it. I personally just kind of panic and I don't feel like I'm ready, or any kind of social event can trigger it as well. Even if I know the people, I still feel sick and anxious and panicky and awkward about it, which is bizarre, but it's just the way that my mind works. It can happen by leaving the house, it could happen during the night, in the middle of the day, if I'm in the middle of some kind of activity, if I'm at work or if I'm at home. I get, the shortness of breath, the feeling of panic and dread, the chest pains or the shooting pains, the dizziness or the fact that my head's swimming. To combat that, I try to concentrate on my breathing, which is foremost most important when I'm having some kind of an anxiety attack. Taking in the slow, deep breaths. If I can chew a mint or chewing gum in a situation, that does help my mind to forget about the fact that I'm feeling sick. However, that's not always possible, but that's a little trick that I learned from my very good friend Alice, and I use that to this day, if I can. Sleep is a very big issue for me. I sleep too much, or I will wake up in the middle of the night like every hour or so, or I get the wrong amount of sleep at the wrong time. I try to put everything that I'm thinking of in a mental box if I can't sleep. So, I'll get the box and I'll go through the process of taking out my thoughts, putting them in the box, closing the box, locking it and putting it away. I feel like that's a process of emptying my mind, which 9 times out of 10 does work for me and helps me get to sleep a little bit faster than usual. It doesn't always work though. To calm my mind down, I've also tried to use sleeping apps, which again, they go through the process of emptying the mind, just like I mentioned with the box. They then kind of teach you to tighten your body parts, hold them for a little while, and then to release them. They also go through like types of meditation processes and things like that. It doesn't always work for me, but sometimes it does. At the moment, my sleeping pattern is completely reversed in on itself, which is not healthy, and I know that I need to work on. Motivation is somewhat impossible for me at the moment. It's actually quite ridiculous and it's really stressful. I've got the want to do things, I just don't have the drive to actually go out and do it. There are days frequently, if I'm not at work, I just don't see a point of leaving my room, which I know is not healthy. But I feel so comfortable in my cave and so awkward outside that I just don't want to leave, basically. I don't want to be anywhere else. These are things that I've acknowledged and that I'm working on, but sometimes, or a lot of the time actually, regardless of me being a 25-year-old woman, I actually do need help and support. Time to Change says, help create a society where mental health problems are not hidden in shame and secrecy. Ensure your friend or relative or co-worker, or heck, even a person on the street for that matter, isn't afraid to speak about their feelings or their problems and isn't left wondering where can they turn to for help. I think sometimes by simply asking, are you okay, that can be a really great start, and it's an easy way to open up the conversation. It's the small things that really do make the bigger differences, and listening is very important too. I feel like pretending that that person with mental health is okay, or they can just get on with it all by themselves, is not only presumptuous but unfair. Sometimes you or I can't just get on with it. As people are so fond of saying, oh, that's life, just get on with it. Yes, I know, I realise that might be the case, but it can be a lot harder for people with mental health issues. I'm not denying that every single person out there has experienced the ups and downs of life, and I'm not saying that every single person might not have those days where they just think, you know what, I just can't do this today. I'm aware that that is entirely possible for everybody to go through something like that, and I completely understand that people have their own things to deal with, and perhaps you might think, oh, you're just being silly, but when it's something more, when it's legitimate, you really aren't mentally or physically coping with something or with life in general, I feel like that saying, oh, just get on with it, that's not fair. If you want to help, then brilliant. You want to be there for somebody, brilliant, do that, be there, support them, listen to them, talk to them, help them in any way possible, because I can guarantee you that they will be there for you in the same capacity should you need that kind of help yourself. If you yourself are suffering from mental health illness, don't be afraid to talk about it. Don't be afraid to express how you feel in a positive way, and don't ever be afraid to ask for whatever it is that you need to help you feel better. Talking about it is a very good step to moving forwards, which is really where you want to be. You don't want to be going backwards, and you don't want to be stagnant. You don't want to stay in the same place. So long as you're going forwards, even if you're taking a few steps forwards and one step back, you're still pushing yourself. You still know and you acknowledge the problems that you're suffering from, and you're still trying to go in the right direction. You're still moving forwards, and if people can help and support you, that's even better. Hopefully this vlog was as coherent as it possibly could be. Hopefully that you found something useful or interesting or insightful about it. If you've got any comments or questions, please leave them below and I'll endeavour to get back to you as soon as possible. If you yourself have made some kind of response to the Time to Talk Day 2016 campaign, please do let me know. If it's a video, it's a blog, whatever it is, I would love to check it out. Thank you for listening to me. I hope that you have a great day. Later, ghouls.